A woman stumbles through a storm toward an iron gate, clutching nothing but the ghost of a dead child in her arms. Behind her, years of running. Ahead, a rancher who doesn't want her, daughters who won't trust her, and a past that's already coming to kill her. This is the story of Naomi Mercer, the woman who walked into hell asking for work instead of mercy. If you're watching from somewhere far from here, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button, and let's begin. The storm hit Horseshoe Hollow like something biblical. Wind tearing across the basin floor, lightning cracking open the desert sky in jagged white scars. Rain came sideways, hard enough to sting. Naomi Mercer stood at the ranch gate with her hand on the iron bars, soaked through to the bone, her dress clinging to her like a second skin made of cold and exhaustion. She didn't knock. She didn't call out. She just stood there, gripping the gate, swaying slightly on her feet, trying to remember why she was still alive. Inside the main house, Silas Boone heard the dogs first. They started barking, low, sharp, territorial. He rose from the table where he'd been staring at a cup of coffee gone cold, crossed to the window, and pulled back the curtain. At first he thought it was a trick of the rain, some shadow caught in the downpour. But then the lightning flashed again, and he saw her. A woman. Thin. Wet. Standing at his gate like she'd crawled out of the ground. "Damn it," he muttered. He grabbed his coat and his rifle, not because he thought she was dangerous, but because out here, you didn't open your door without one, and stepped out onto the porch. The rain hit him immediately, cold and furious. He squinted through it, boots splashing in the mud as he crossed the yard. When he reached the gate, he got a better look at her. She was young, maybe 30, maybe younger. Her hair hung in dark, tangled ropes against her neck. Her face was pale, hollow-cheeked, eyes shadowed so deep they looked bruised. She didn't flinch when he approached, didn't beg, didn't cry. She just looked at him. "You lost?" Silas called over the wind. "No," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. "Then what the hell are you doing at my gate in the middle of a storm?" "Looking for work." Silas blinked. "Work?" "Yes. Lady, I don't know what you think this place is, but I can cook," she said, cutting him off. "I can clean, I can mend, sew, tend animals. I don't need much, just food and a place to sleep." Silas stared at her. "You asking for charity?" "No." Her jaw tightened. "I'm asking for work." "Where'd you come from?" "South." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." The rain poured harder. Lightning flashed again, and in that brief flare of light, Silas saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. It wasn't fear. It wasn't desperation. It was resignation. She wasn't here because she wanted to be. She was here because she had nowhere else left to go. "Got a name?" he asked. "Naomi." "Last name?" She hesitated. "Mercer." "Where's your husband?" "Dead." "Kids?" Her face went blank. "Dead." Silas felt something cold settle in his gut. He'd seen that look before, seen it in the mirror, in fact, right after they buried his wife. "You running from something?" he asked. "Not anymore," she said. "There's nothing left to run from." That should have been the end of it. Should have been the moment he told her to move along, find a church, find a town, find someone else's problem to become. But Silas Boone had spent the last 3 years watching his daughters grow up in a house that felt more like a tomb than a home. He'd buried his wife under a cottonwood tree and buried his heart right alongside her. And now here was a woman standing in the rain asking for work instead of pity. And something about that, something stubborn and reckless, made him unlock the gate. "You break my daughters' hearts," he said, "and I'll put you off this ranch myself. Understood?" Naomi nodded. "Understood." He pushed the gate open. "Come on, then." She stepped through. But the house smelled like wet wood and old smoke. Silas led Naomi inside, dripping mud across the floorboards, and pointed her toward the kitchen. "Sit," he said. She sat. He poured her coffee from the pot on the stove, thick, bitter stuff that had been sitting too long, and set it in front of her. She wrapped her hands around the cup but didn't drink, just held it, like she was trying to remember what warmth felt like. "You eat today?" Silas asked. "No." "Yesterday?" "No." He opened the bread box, pulled out half a loaf, sliced off a piece, and set it on a plate in front of her. She stared at it like it was something foreign. "Go on," he said. She picked it up, took a small bite, chewed slowly, swallowed, then took another. Silas leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her. She wasn't pretty, exactly, too worn down for that. But there was something sharp about her, something that hadn't broken yet despite everything trying to break it. "You got any belongings?" he asked. "No." "Nothing?" "Nothing." "No bag? No horse?" "I walked." "From where?" "Far enough." Silas frowned. "You always this evasive? You always this nosy?" Despite himself, he almost smiled. "Fair enough." The door to the hallway creaked open and a girl stepped through. She was maybe 14, tall for her age, with dark hair pulled back in a braid, and eyes that looked too old for her face. She stopped when she saw Naomi. "Who's that?" the girl asked. "Her name's Naomi," Silas said. "She's going to be working here for a while." The girl's expression didn't change. "Why?" "Because I said so." "We don't need help." "I'll decide what we need, Charlotte." Charlotte looked at Naomi for a long moment, her gaze cold and assessing. Then she turned and walked back out without another word. Naomi set down the bread. "She doesn't want me here." "She doesn't want anyone here," Silas said. "Don't take it personal." "How many daughters do you have?" "2. Charlotte's the oldest. Then there's Lily. She's 8. "And their mother?" "Died 3 years ago." Naomi nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." There was a silence. Not uncomfortable exactly, but heavy. The kind of silence two people share when they've both lost too much to pretend otherwise. "You can sleep in the spare room," Silas said finally. "Down the hall, last door on the left. I'll get you some dry clothes." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "You might not last a week." Tuck. The spare room was small. A bed, a chair, a cracked mirror on the wall. Naomi sat on the edge of the mattress, still damp, still cold, and stared at her reflection. She barely recognized herself. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow. Her hands, resting in her lap, looked like they belonged to someone else. Someone older. Someone who'd been used up and wrung out. She thought about the baby, the one she'd held for 6 hours before he died. She thought about her husband, the one who'd put a gun in his mouth a year later. She thought about all the miles she'd walked since then, all the nights spent sleeping in barns and under bridges, all the time she'd considered just lying down and letting the world finish her off. But she hadn't. She didn't know why. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was some stupid animal reflex that kept her lungs pulling air even when she didn't want them to. Whatever it was, it had brought her here, to this ranch, to this room, to this man who looked at her like she was a problem he didn't want but couldn't quite turn away. She lay down on the bed, closed her eyes, and listened to the rain hammer against the roof. For the first time in months, she slept. Mugged. Morning came hard and bright. Naomi woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway and the smell of bacon frying. She sat up, disoriented, and realized she was still wearing the damp dress from the night before. There was a knock at the door. "Yeah?" she called. The door opened and Silas stepped in, holding a bundle of clothes. "These were my wife's," he said. "They'll fit well enough." He set them on the chair and turned to leave. "Silas," Naomi said. He stopped. "Why'd you let me in?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I know what it looks like when someone's got nothing left to lose." He walked out. Naomi dressed slowly. The clothes fit loose. His wife had been taller, broader, but they were clean and dry, and that was enough. She braided her hair, splashed water on her face from the basin, and stepped out into the hallway. The kitchen was loud. Charlotte sat at the table, glaring at a plate of eggs. Across from her, a small girl with tangled blonde hair and a dirt-smudged face poked at her bacon with a fork. Silas stood at the stove, flipping more eggs with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd been doing it alone for too long. He glanced at Naomi. "You cook?" "Yes." "Good. You're on breakfast duty starting tomorrow." Charlotte's head snapped up. "We don't need—" "I didn't ask," Silas said. The small girl, Lily, looked up at Naomi with wide, curious eyes. "Are you staying?" "For now," Naomi said. "Forever?" Lily, Silas warned. I'm just asking. Naomi knelt down so she was eye level with the girl. I don't know about forever, she said, but I'm here today. That's enough, isn't it? Lily considered this. Then she nodded. Okay. Charlotte shoved her chair back and stood. I'm going to check the fence line. Eat first, Silas said. I'm not hungry. Charlotte, but she was already out the door, letting it slam behind her. Silas sighed. She'll warm up. No, she won't, Naomi said. He looked at her, surprised. She thinks I'm going to leave, Naomi continued, and she's probably right. You planning on it? I don't plan much of anything anymore. Lily tugged on Naomi's sleeve. Can you braid hair? I can. Will you braid mine? Naomi glanced at Silas. He shrugged. Sure, Naomi said. After breakfast. The first week was brutal. Not because the work was hard, though it was, but because Charlotte made sure Naomi knew she wasn't wanted. She ignored her at meals, rolled her eyes when Naomi spoke, found reasons to criticize everything she did. You burned the biscuits. I didn't burn them. They're burned. Naomi bit her tongue and scraped the biscuits into the trash. Lily, on the other hand, latched onto Naomi like a burr. She followed her around the house, asking questions, chattering endlessly about the ranch, the animals, the time she'd found a snake in the barn and Charlotte had screamed. Did she really scream? Naomi asked. So loud, Lily said, giggling. At night, Naomi fell into bed exhausted. Her hands blistered from scrubbing floors, her back ached from hauling water, and her mind buzzed with the strange, disorienting sensation of being around people again. She'd forgotten what that felt like. The noise, the presence, the weight of other lives pressing against hers. It was terrifying. But it was also, somehow, less lonely. More sheets. 2 weeks in, Naomi found Charlotte sitting on the fence behind the barn, staring out at the hills. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of rust and gold. Naomi climbed up and sat beside her. Charlotte didn't look at her. What do you want? Nothing, Naomi said. Then why are you here? Same reason you are, I guess. Needed some air. Charlotte's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. No, Naomi agreed. I don't. They sat in silence for a while. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of dust and sagebrush. You're going to leave, Charlotte said finally. Everyone does. Maybe, Naomi said. Charlotte turned to her, eyes sharp. Then why should we care? I didn't say you should. Then what are you even doing here? Naomi looked out at the hills. Trying not to die, mostly. Charlotte blinked, taken aback. I lost my son, Naomi said quietly. Lost my husband. Lost everything I thought I was supposed to be. And I've been running ever since. This ranch, it's the first place I've stopped. I don't know if I'll stay. I don't know if I even can. But I'm here now, and that's all I've got. Charlotte stared at her for a long moment. Then she looked away. My mom used to sit here, she said, every night before dinner. She'd watch the sun go down and then come back inside, smiling. She sounds nice. She was. Charlotte's voice cracked. And then she died. And my dad stopped smiling, and Lily stopped sleeping, and She broke off, swallowing hard. I had to hold everything together. And I'm so tired. Naomi didn't say anything. She just sat there, listening. I don't want to care about you, Charlotte whispered, because if I do, and you leave, I know, Naomi said. Charlotte wiped her eyes. Do you? Yeah, Naomi said. I do. They sat together until the sun disappeared and the stars came out, cold and bright and impossibly far away. Trot. A month passed, then 2. Naomi settled into the rhythm of the ranch. She woke before dawn, started the fire, made breakfast. She mended clothes, scrubbed floors, tended the garden. She braided Lily's hair every morning and listened to Charlotte's silence every night. Silas watched her. Not obviously, but she felt it, his eyes following her across the yard, lingering when she laughed at something Lily said, narrowing when she winced from lifting something too heavy. One evening he found her in the barn, feeding the horses. You're good with them, he said. She looked up. I grew up around animals. Where? Doesn't matter. He leaned against the stall door. You ever going to tell me where you came from? Probably not. Why? Because it doesn't change anything. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, "My wife, her name was Clara. She got sick, fever. Lasted 3 days. By the time the doctor came, it was too late." Naomi stopped brushing the horse. "I'm sorry. I thought I'd never get past it," Silas continued. "Thought the house would just stay frozen like that forever. But then you showed up, and Lily started smiling again. And Charlotte, she's still angry, but she's talking. And I don't know what the hell that means, but don't," Naomi said. He frowned. "Don't what?" "Don't put that on me. I'm not here to fix anything. I'm just—" She struggled for the words. "I'm just trying to survive." "I know," Silas said, "but maybe that's enough." She looked at him, really looked at him. He was older than her, maybe 40, with lines carved deep around his eyes and a mouth that had forgotten how to smile. But there was something solid about him, something steady. "I don't know how to stay," she said quietly. "Then don't," he said. "Just don't leave tonight." She nodded. "Okay." That night, Lily had a nightmare. Naomi woke to the sound of crying, small, hiccuping sobs coming from down the hall. She got up, padded barefoot to Lily's room, and found the girl curled up in bed, clutching a ragged doll. "Hey," Naomi whispered, sitting on the edge of the mattress. "What's wrong?" "I dreamed you left," Lily said, her voice choked with tears. "I'm still here." "But you're going to leave. Everyone leaves." Naomi's chest tightened. "Come here." Lily crawled into her lap, and Naomi held her, rocking slowly, the way she used to rock her son before. She pushed the thought away. "I'm not going anywhere tonight," Naomi said. "Okay? Promise?" "I promise." Lily sniffled. "Can you stay until I fall asleep?" "Yeah, I can do that." She lay down beside Lily, and the girl curled against her, small and warm and trusting in a way that made Naomi's throat ache. She stayed until Lily's breathing evened out, and then she stayed a little longer. The next morning, Charlotte found her in the kitchen. "Lily said you slept in her room last night," Charlotte said. "She had a bad dream." Charlotte crossed her arms. "She gets attached to people." "I know. And then they leave." "I know. So maybe you shouldn't—" "Charlotte," Naomi said, turning to face her, "I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if I'm staying. I don't know if I can. But I'm not going to hurt her on purpose. And I'm not going to promise something I can't give." Charlotte's jaw worked. "Then what are you going to do?" "The best I can," Naomi said. "Same as you." For a moment, Charlotte looked like she wanted to argue, but then her shoulders sagged and she just nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." 3 months in, the ranch felt different. Not perfect, not healed, but different. Lily laughed more. Charlotte talked more. Silas smiled. Just a little, just sometimes. But it was there. And Naomi, she stopped feeling like a ghost. She still thought about her son. Still woke up some nights with her arms empty and her chest hollow. But she also thought about Lily's braids and Charlotte's stubborn silences, and the way Silas looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. She thought about staying, and that terrified her more than anything. Then, one afternoon, a woman arrived at the gate. She was tall, sharp-featured, dressed in black silk that didn't belong in the desert. She rode a black mare and carried herself like someone used to getting what she wanted. Silas met her at the gate. Naomi watched from the porch, a basket of laundry forgotten at her feet. "Silas," the woman said, her voice smooth and cold. "Vivian," Silas said, "what are you doing here?" "I heard you took in a stray." Silas's expression darkened. "That's none of your business." "Oh, but it is," Vivian said, her eyes sliding past him to land on Naomi. "Because the woman standing on your porch? She's got quite a history, and I think you'd want to know about it." Naomi's blood turned to ice. Silas looked back at her. "Naomi?" Vivian smiled. "Oh, is that what she's calling herself now?" "Get off my land," Silas said, his voice hard. "I'll go," Vivian said. "But you should ask her about Fletcher Cade. Ask her what she was before she crawled to your door." She turned her horse and rode off, leaving nothing but dust and dread in her wake. Silas walked slowly back to the porch. Naomi stood frozen, her heart hammering. "Who's Fletcher Cade?" Silas asked. Naomi's hand shook. "Someone I used to know." "Used to know?" "Yes." "And?" "And he's the reason I left everything behind." Silas stared at her. "You gonna tell me the rest?" "Not yet," she whispered. "Naomi—" "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Not yet." He looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded. "All right," he said. "But when you're ready, you tell me, because whatever's coming, we're going to need to face it together." Naomi nodded, unable to speak, because she knew the truth. Fletcher Cade didn't let go of anything, and if he'd found her here, then the storm she'd been running from had finally caught up. The gate was closed, but the enemy was already inside. Naomi didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around her, waiting for the sound of hoofbeats or footsteps, or whatever form Fletcher Cade's arrival would take, because he was coming. Vivian's visit had made that clear. The only question was when. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She found Silas in the barn, mucking out stalls. He looked up when she entered, his expression guarded. "I need to tell you something," she said. He set down the pitchfork. "All right." "Not here. Somewhere the girls won't hear." They walked out past the corral, beyond the chicken coop, to the edge of the property where the land sloped down toward a dry creek bed. The sun was just clearing the horizon, painting everything in shades of amber and rose. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself. "My husband's name was David Mercer. We married when I was 19. I thought he was kind. I thought he loved me." Silas waited. "He didn't," Naomi continued. He had debts. Gambling debts, mostly. And when he couldn't pay them, he started working for Fletcher Cade. Cade owned half the county back then. Saloons, land deals, cattle-rustling operations dressed up as legitimate business. David did his dirty work, collections, intimidation, worse things I didn't know about until later. "And you?" Silas asked. "I was pregnant. I didn't know what David was doing. Or I told myself I didn't know. Either way, I kept my head down and waited for the baby to come." Her voice cracked. "His name was Elias. He lived 6 hours. Silas's jaw tightened. After that, David fell apart. Started drinking. Started getting violent. One night he came home covered in blood. Not his. And I knew. I knew what he'd become, what I'd married." She took a shaky breath. "I tried to leave, packed a bag, waited until he passed out. But Cade found me before I made it to the county line. He dragged me back. Told David to keep me on a tighter leash." "Jesus," Silas muttered. "David died a year later. Put a gun in his mouth. And I thought that was the end of it. That I could finally disappear. So I ran, changed my name, moved from town to town, worked kitchens, laundries, anywhere that didn't ask questions." She looked at Silas. "But Cade doesn't forget. And he doesn't let go. If Vivian knows I'm here, then he knows too." "What does he want?" "I don't know, maybe revenge. Maybe he thinks I know something about David's deals. Or maybe he just doesn't like loose ends." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is he's dangerous, and if he comes here, then we deal with it," Silas said. Naomi stared at him. "You don't understand. He'll destroy you. He'll destroy this place. I said we'll deal with it." "Why?" Her voice rose. "Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know?" Silas stepped closer. "Because you're not running anymore. And because those girls in that house, they need you. Whether you believe it or not. They need stability, safety. I'm the opposite of that." "You're here," Silas said. "That's what they need." Naomi's eyes burned. "You're a fool." "Probably." He almost smiled. "But I'm a stubborn fool, so you're stuck with me." She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the fact that someone was choosing to stand beside her instead of cutting her loose. It felt foreign, dangerous, like something that would break if she touched it. "If I stay," she said quietly, "people are going to get hurt." "People get hurt anyway," Silas said. "At least this way we're choosing what we're fighting for." Naomi looked out on the ranch, at the house, the barn, the fence line stretching toward the hills. She thought about Lily's small hand in hers, Charlotte's slow thaw, the way the kitchen smelled like bread and coffee in the mornings. She thought about having something to lose again. It terrified her. but she nodded. "All right," she said. "I'll stay. For now." "Good," Silas said. "Then let's get to work." They walked back toward the house together, and Naomi tried to ignore the feeling that she'd just made a promise she had no idea how to keep. Inside, Lily was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in her nightgown, kicking her feet against the chair legs. She lit up when she saw Naomi. "Can we make pancakes?" she asked. "Sure," Naomi said, forcing a smile. "Go wash your face first." Lily scampered off. Charlotte appeared in the doorway a moment later, hair disheveled, eyes still half closed. "Morning," Naomi said. Charlotte grunted and slumped into a chair. Naomi started pulling out flour, eggs, milk. Her hands moved automatically, mixing the batter while her mind churned through worst-case scenarios. Cade arriving with men. Cade burning the place down. Cade taking her back by force. "You're doing it wrong," Charlotte said. Naomi blinked. "What?" "The batter. You're over-mixing it. Makes them tough." Naomi looked down at the bowl. Charlotte was right. She set down the spoon. "Sorry," she said. Charlotte frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't." "Why?" Naomi hesitated. Then she said, "Just had a lot on my mind." Charlotte studied her for a moment. Then she stood, walked over, and took the bowl. "I'll finish this." "You sit." Charlotte, "Sit." Naomi sat. Charlotte finished mixing the batter, poured it onto the griddle, and flipped the pancakes with the ease of someone who'd been doing it for years. When they were done, she set a plate in front of Naomi. "Eat," she said. "I'm not—" "Eat." Naomi picked up her fork, took a bite. The pancakes were perfect, fluffy, golden, better than anything she'd made in weeks. "These are good," she said. "I know," Charlotte said. Then quieter. "My mom taught me." Naomi looked at her. Charlotte's expression was carefully neutral, but there was something fragile underneath. "She taught you well," Naomi said. Charlotte shrugged. "Yeah, I guess." Lily bounced back into the kitchen, face scrubbed pink, and climbed into her chair. "Pancakes!" They ate together, the four of them, Silas, Naomi, Charlotte, Lily. And for a few minutes it almost felt normal, like they were a family. Like the shadow hanging over Naomi's head wasn't there at all. But it was, and it was getting closer. The next few days passed in tense normalcy. Naomi threw herself into work, scrubbing floors until her knuckles bled, mending clothes until her eyes ached, cooking meals she barely tasted. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. Lily stuck close, chattering endlessly about the ranch, the horses, a bird's nest she'd found in the barn. Naomi braided her hair every morning, the ritual becoming something solid and grounding. Charlotte thawed further. She started helping in the kitchen without being asked. Started sitting beside Naomi at meals instead of across from her. Started talking, not a lot, but enough. One evening, while they were peeling potatoes, Charlotte said, "That woman who came by, Vivienne, who is she?" Naomi's hands stilled. "Someone from a long time ago." "She looked mean." "She is. Is she going to come back?" "I don't know." Charlotte set down her knife. "Are you in trouble?" Naomi met her eyes. "Maybe." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind I'm trying to keep away from you and Lily." Charlotte's jaw tightened. "We're not kids." "Well, Lily is, but I'm not. If something's wrong, you should tell us." "I'm handling it." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." Charlotte stared at her for a long moment. Then she picked up her knife and went back to peeling. "Fine, but if you need help—" "I know," Naomi said. "Thank you." That night, Lily crawled into Naomi's bed again. It was becoming a habit, one Naomi knew she should probably discourage but couldn't bring herself to. "Can you tell me a story?" Lily asked, snuggling against Naomi's side. "What kind of story?" "A happy one." Naomi thought for a moment. Then she said, "Once there was a girl who lived by the sea. Every morning she'd walk along the beach and collect shells. She had hundreds of them, every color, every shape, and she kept them all in a big glass jar by her window." "What did she do with them?" Lily asked. "Nothing. She just liked looking at them, liked the way they reminded her that beautiful things existed, even after storms." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Do you miss the sea? I've never seen it, Naomi admitted. Then how do you know about the girl? I made her up. Oh, Lily yawned. Can you make up more stories? Tomorrow, Naomi said. Sleep now. Lily's breathing evened out within minutes. Naomi lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever feel safe enough to sleep through the night again. A week later, the ranch hand arrived. His name was Garrett Webb, and he was Silas's foreman, a wiry, weathered man in his 50s with a permanent scowl and eyes that missed nothing. He'd been gone for 2 weeks, helping a neighbor with a cattle drive, and he returned to find Naomi running the kitchen. He didn't like it. Who's she? He asked Silas, jerking his chin toward Naomi. Her name's Naomi. She's working here. Since when do we need kitchen help? Since I decided we did. Garrett's eyes narrowed. Where'd she come from? That's her business. It's my business if she's trouble. She's not. You sure about that? Silas's expression hardened. I said she's not. Garrett spat into the dirt. Fine, but if this goes sideways, don't say I didn't warn you. He stalked off toward the bunkhouse, and Naomi let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Don't mind him, Silas said. He's protective. He's right to be, Naomi said. Maybe, but that doesn't mean you're leaving. Garrett made his suspicion clear over the next few days. He watched Naomi like a hawk, questioned every decision she made, and muttered under his breath whenever she passed. Naomi ignored him. She had bigger problems. Because 2 weeks after Vivian's visit, a rider appeared on the horizon. Silas saw him first. He was mending a fence near the east pasture when he spotted the figure. A lone man on horseback, moving slow and deliberate across the basin floor. He called for Garrett, and together they rode out to meet him. The man was young, maybe 20, with a clean-shaven face and clothes too fine for ranch work. He reined in his horse and tipped his hat. Afternoon, he said. I'm looking for Silas Boone. You found him, Silas said. My name's Thomas Reed. I work for Fletcher Cade. Silas's blood went cold. What do you want? Mr. Cade would like to extend an invitation. He's hosting a dinner in town next week. He'd be honored if you and your household would attend. Tell Cade I'm not interested, Reed smiled. He thought you might say that, which is why he asked me to mention that he's very much looking forward to meeting Mrs. Mercer again. It's been far too long. Silas's hand moved to the rifle on his saddle. Get off my land. Reed raised his hands. No need for hostility. I'm just delivering a message. Message delivered. Now leave. Reed tipped his hat again, turned his horse, and rode off. Garrett looked at Silas. Who the hell is Fletcher Cade? Trouble, Silas said. And this Mrs. Mercer he mentioned. That's her, isn't it? The woman in your kitchen. Silas didn't answer. Damn it, Silas, Garrett said. I told you she was trouble. I know what you told me. Then why the hell is she still here? Because I said she could be, Garrett spat. You're making a mistake. Probably, Silas said, but it's my mistake to make. He rode back to the house, his gut churning. When he walked into the kitchen, Naomi was kneading dough, her hands dusted with flour. She looked up, saw his face, and went pale. He sent someone, didn't he? She said. Yeah. What did he want? Invited us to dinner. Naomi laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Of course he did. I told him no. That won't stop him. I know. She set down the dough, wiped her hands on her apron. I should leave, before this gets worse. No. Silas, I said no. He crossed to her, his voice low and fierce. You're not running, not this time. You don't understand what he's capable of. Then tell me. She looked at him, her eyes wide and terrified. He'll burn this place to the ground. He'll hurt the girls. He'll destroy everything you've built. And he'll do it with a smile. Let him try, Silas said. You can't fight him. Watch me. Naomi shook her head. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe. But at least I'll go down swinging. He stepped closer. You've been running your whole life, Naomi. And I get it. I do. But running doesn't solve anything. It just leaves you tired and alone. I know, she whispered. Then stop. Stay here. Let us help you. Why? Her voice broke. Why do you care? Silas hesitated. Then he said, Because when you walked through that gate, this house started feeling like a home again. And I'm not ready to let that go." Naomi stared at him, something fierce and fragile flickering in her eyes. Then she turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Do what?" "Stay. Trust people. Let them close enough to hurt me." "You're already doing it," Silas said. "You just don't realize it yet." She didn't answer, just stood there, hands gripping the edge of the counter, trying to hold herself together. Silas left her alone, gave her space, because he knew pushing wouldn't help. But that night, when he checked on the girls before bed, he found Naomi sitting in Lily's room, the girl curled against her, fast asleep. Naomi looked up when he appeared in the doorway. "She had another nightmare," Naomi said quietly. "You don't have to do this every night." "I know, but you do it anyway." "Yeah." Silas leaned against the doorframe. "She's getting attached." "I know. So am I." Naomi's breath caught. "Silas, I'm not asking for anything," he said. "I just wanted you to know." He turned and walked away, leaving her sitting there in the lamplight, holding a child that wasn't hers, but felt like she could be. The next morning, Charlotte found Naomi in the garden, pulling weeds with more force than necessary. "You okay?" Charlotte asked. "Fine." "You're lying." Naomi sat back on her heels. "I'm scared, all right? Is that what you want to hear?" Charlotte crouched beside her. "Of what?" "Everything. Cade, the future, hurting you and Lily, your father getting hurt because of me." She shook her head. "I don't know how to fix this." "Maybe you don't have to," Charlotte said. "Maybe you just have to stop trying to do it alone." Naomi looked at her. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just weren't paying attention." Despite everything, Naomi smiled. "Fair enough." They worked together in silence for a while, pulling weeds and turning soil. It was simple work, grounding, the kind of thing that made Naomi feel almost human again. "My mom used to say that gardens were like people," Charlotte said after a while. "You can't force them to grow. You just give them what they need and hope for the best." She sounds wise. She was. Charlotte paused. "I think she'd like you." Naomi's throat tightened. "Yeah?" "Yeah, she always said the strongest people were the ones who'd been broken and put themselves back together." "I'm not sure I'm back together yet." "Maybe not," Charlotte said. "But you're trying. That counts for something." Naomi reached over and squeezed Charlotte's hand. Charlotte squeezed back. That afternoon, Garrett cornered Naomi near the barn. "You need to leave," he said without preamble. Naomi looked at him. "Silas already told you." "I don't care what Silas said. I care about this ranch, and you're putting it in danger." "I know." "Then why are you still here?" Naomi met his eyes. "Because he asked me to stay." "And you're just going to let him risk everything for you?" "No, I'm going to help him fight." Garrett laughed harshly. "You? Fight Fletcher Cade? Lady, you don't know what you're up against." "Yes, I do. Better than anyone." "Then you know you can't win." "Maybe not," Naomi said. "But I'm done running." Garrett studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the dumbest." "Probably both," Naomi said. "If this goes bad, it won't. You don't know that." "No," Naomi admitted, "but I have to believe it. Because if I don't—" She broke off, swallowing hard. "If I don't, I'll run. And I can't do that anymore." Garrett was quiet. Then he said, "All right, but if Cade comes here, you don't hide. You stand with us. Understood?" "Understood." He walked away and Naomi let out a shaky breath. She was making promises she didn't know if she could keep. Planting roots in ground that might not hold. Trusting people who could, who probably would, get hurt because of her. But she was doing it anyway. Because for the first time in years, she had something worth fighting for. That night, Naomi woke to the smell of smoke. She sat bolt upright, heart hammering, and ran to the window. In the distance, near the western fence line, orange flames licked at the darkness. Not huge, not yet, but bright enough to be seen from the house. She threw on her clothes and ran into the hallway. Silas was already moving, pulling on his boots, rifle in hand. "Wake the girls," he said. "Get them to the root cellar." "What's burning?" "Hayfield, looks like. Could be lightning. Could be something else." His jaw was tight. Either way, we need to move. Naomi ran to Lily's room. The girl was still asleep, curled around her doll. Naomi shook her gently. Lily, wake up. Lily's eyes fluttered open. What's wrong? There's a fire. We need to go to the cellar. Is it bad? I don't know yet. Come on. She pulled Lily out of bed and grabbed Charlotte from the next room. Charlotte was already awake, staring out her window at the flames. Is it Cade? Charlotte asked. I don't know, Naomi said, but we're not taking chances. They hurried downstairs. The root cellar was accessed through a trapdoor in the kitchen floor, a small, damp space that smelled like earth and potatoes. Naomi lit a lantern and ushered the girls down. Stay here, she said. Don't come up until I tell you it's safe. Where are you going? Lily asked, her voice small and scared. To help your father. But I'll be back. I promise. She closed the trapdoor and ran outside. The air was thick with smoke. Silas and Garrett were already mounted, riding hard toward the fire. Naomi grabbed a bucket, filled it from the trough, and followed on foot. By the time she reached the field, the fire had spread. It wasn't massive yet, but it was growing fast, feeding on dry grass and wind. Silas and Garrett were beating at the flames with wet blankets, trying to contain it. Naomi threw her bucket of water onto the nearest patch of fire and ran back for more. They worked for hours, hauling water, beating flames, digging fire breaks with shovels and bare hands. The heat was brutal. The smoke choked. Naomi's lungs burned, her arms ached, but she didn't stop. Finally, as dawn broke, the fire died. They stood in the charred field, covered in soot and ash, breathing hard. The damage was bad. Half the hayfield gone, fence posts blackened and crumbling. But it could have been worse. Silas wiped his face with a filthy hand. You all right? Naomi nodded, coughing. Yeah, you? I'll live. Garrett was inspecting the fence line. He crouched down, examining something, then stood and walked back. It was set, he said. Silas went still. You sure? Garrett held up a piece of charred rope. Found this tied around a post, soaked in kerosene from the smell of it. Cade, Naomi said quietly. Had to be, Garrett said. This wasn't an accident. Silas's expression turned to stone. He's trying to scare us. It's working, Naomi said. No. Silas looked at her. It's not, because we're not giving him what he wants. And what's that? You, running. Naomi's chest tightened. Silas, if he's willing to burn your fields, then we rebuild them. And we watch the fence lines. And we don't let him win. His voice was hard. I'm not backing down. Garrett spat into the dirt. You're a damn fool, Silas. So you keep saying, and you keep not listening. That's because I don't care. Silas turned to him. This is my land, my family. And I'm not letting some bastard like Cade tell me who I can or can't protect. Garrett stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fine, but we're going to need more men. If Cade's escalating, we can't handle this alone. I'll ride into town tomorrow, Silas said. See who I can hire. They walked back to the house in silence. Naomi's mind was racing. The fire was a warning, a message. Cade was telling her he could reach her anytime he wanted, that walls and gates and armed men wouldn't stop him. When they got back, Naomi opened the cellar and found both girls huddled together in the dark. Lily's face was tear-streaked. Is it out? She asked. It's out, Naomi said. You're safe. Lily threw her arms around Naomi's waist and held on tight. Charlotte stood slowly, her expression hard. Was it him? Charlotte asked. The man you're running from? Naomi hesitated, then she nodded. Probably. What does he want? Me. Then give him what he wants, Charlotte said. Naomi blinked. What? You heard me. If he wants you, leave. Go somewhere else. Stop putting us in danger. Charlotte, Silas started. No. Charlotte's voice shook. I'm tired of pretending this is fine. She shows up out of nowhere and suddenly our fields are burning. That's not a coincidence. Charlotte, Naomi said gently, I know you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm angry. Charlotte's eyes flashed. We were fine before you came, and now we were not fine, Silas said, his voice sharp. We were surviving. There's a difference. At least we were safe. Were we? Silas crossed his arms. Or were we just slowly dying in this house, pretending everything was all right? Charlotte flinched. Naomi being here doesn't make us weaker, Silas continued. It makes us stronger, because now we have something worth fighting for. You don't even know her, Charlotte said. I know enough. You're going to get us all killed. Maybe, but at least we'll go down fighting instead of hiding. Charlotte stared at him, her jaw working. Then she turned and stormed out of the kitchen. Lily looked up at Naomi. Is Charlotte right? Are we in danger? Naomi knelt down so she was eye level with the girl. Yes, we are. But your father and I are going to do everything we can to keep you safe, I promise. What if your promise isn't enough? Naomi's throat tightened. Then I'll figure something else out. Lily nodded slowly. Okay. But Naomi could see the doubt in her eyes, and it broke her heart. The next morning, Silas rode into town. He came back with 3 men, ranch hands from neighboring properties, all of them armed and willing to patrol the fence lines for pay. They set up a rotation. 2 men on watch at all times, circling the property, keeping an eye out for riders or fires or anything else Cade might send their way. It helped. A little. But Naomi could feel the tension building like a storm front pressing down on all of them. Charlotte stopped talking to her, just flat out ignored her, passed her in the hallway without a word, ate meals in silence. Naomi tried to bridge the gap, but Charlotte wasn't having it. Give her time, Silas said one evening. She hates me. She doesn't hate you. She's scared, and she doesn't know how to process it. She's right to be scared, Naomi said. This is my fault. It's Cade's fault. Same thing. No, Silas said. It's not. But Naomi wasn't convinced. A week passed. Then another. The ranch stayed quiet. No more fires, no more riders, just the oppressive weight of waiting. Then, one afternoon, a carriage rolled up to the gate. Naomi saw it from the kitchen window. A sleek black carriage pulled by 2 horses, polished to a shine. The driver hopped down and opened the door. Fletcher Cade stepped out. He was tall, well-dressed, with silver streaks in his dark hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a banker or a lawyer, someone respectable, someone you'd trust. But Naomi knew better. Silas met him at the gate, rifle in hand. Mr. Boone, Cade said pleasantly. Good to finally meet you. Get off my property, Silas said. Now, is that any way to greet a neighbor? You're not my neighbor, you're a criminal. Cade's smile widened. Strong words. You have proof? I don't need proof. I know what you are. And yet here I stand, a free man. Cade glanced past Silas toward the house. Is she here? Mrs. Mercer? That's none of your business. Oh, but it is. You see, she and I have unfinished business. Her late husband owed me quite a bit of money, and when he died, that debt passed to her. That's not how debts work. It is when I say it is. Silas's grip tightened on the rifle. She doesn't owe you anything. That's for a court to decide, don't you think? There's not going to be a court. There's just you leaving. Now. Cade tilted his head. You're very protective of her. Why is that? Because she's under my roof. That makes her my responsibility. How noble. Cade's tone turned cold. But nobility doesn't pay debts, Mr. Boone, and it doesn't protect you from consequences. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Cade straightened his coat. I'll give you 1 week. Tell Mrs. Mercer to come see me. We'll settle this like civilized people. If she doesn't, well, I can't be held responsible for what happens next. She's not going anywhere near you. Then I suppose we'll see each other again soon. Cade tipped his hat. Good day, Mr. Boone. He climbed back into the carriage and rode off, leaving Silas standing at the gate, shaking with barely controlled rage. Naomi had watched the whole exchange from the window. When Silas came back inside, she was waiting. What did he say? She asked. Nothing worth repeating. Silas, he wants you to meet with him, alone. Absolutely not, Garrett said, stepping into the kitchen. That's a trap. I know it's a trap, Silas said. Then we don't even consider it, Garrett said. But Naomi was thinking. Maybe I should go. Both men turned to stare at her. Are you out of your mind? Garrett asked. He's not going to stop, Naomi said. You know that. He'll keep escalating until someone gets killed. But if I meet with him, he'll kill you, Silas said flatly. Maybe. Or maybe he just wants to talk. He doesn't want to talk. He wants leverage. Then I'll give it to him. No. Silas's voice was hard. You're not doing this. It's not your decision. Like hell it's not. You're part of this household, and I'm not letting you walk into a death trap. Silas. No. He stepped closer. I've already lost one person I cared about. I'm not losing another. Naomi's breath caught. You barely know me. I know enough. His eyes were fierce, and I'm not letting you go. They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension. Finally, Naomi looked away. Fine, she said. But we need another plan. I'm working on it, Silas said. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. Gates left open, cattle wandering off, tools going missing, small things, irritating things, things designed to wear them down. Garrett caught one of Cade's men cutting a fence wire. He chased him off with a shotgun blast over his head, but the message was clear. Cade's people were everywhere. The ranch hand Silas had hired started getting nervous. One quit outright. Another asked for double pay. The third stayed, but Naomi could see the fear in his eyes. Charlotte's anger turned into something colder. She started carrying a knife tucked into her belt, started watching the horizon like she was waiting for something. Lily stopped sleeping. She'd wake up screaming, convinced the house was on fire or that men were coming to take Naomi away. Naomi held her every night, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Silas barely slept either. He spent his nights patrolling the property, rifle always in hand, eyes scanning the darkness. Naomi felt like she was watching everything she'd built crumble, watching the people she cared about suffer because of her. And the worst part was, she didn't know how to stop it. Then, one morning, she found something nailed to the gate, a piece of paper, a wanted poster. Her face stared back at her, younger, thinner, eyes wide with fear. The text read, "Wanted for theft and fraud. Reward, $500. It was a lie, all of it. But it didn't matter. Kate had enough money and influence to make lies look like truth. She tore it down and brought it inside. Silas took one look at it and swore. He's trying to turn the town against you, he said. It's working, Naomi said. I went to the general store yesterday. People wouldn't even look at me. Then we fight back. How? I don't know yet, but we will. That night, Naomi sat on the porch, staring out at the dark. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Charlotte standing there. Can I sit? Charlotte asked. Yeah. Charlotte sat beside her, arms wrapped around her knees. They were quiet for a while. I'm sorry, Charlotte said finally. For what? For saying you should leave, for blaming you. She looked at Naomi. It's not your fault, I know that. I didn't want to care about you because if something happened, I know, Naomi said, but I do care. And I'm scared. Me too. Charlotte leaned her head against Naomi's shoulder. What are we going to do? I don't know, Naomi admitted, but we're going to figure it out together. Promise? Promise. The next morning, Naomi made a decision. She found Silas in the barn. I need to go into town, she said. Why? Because hiding isn't working. Cade's spreading lies about me, and people are believing them. I need to tell my side. That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous right now. Silas studied her. What are you planning? I'm going to tell the truth about David, about Cade, about everything. They might not believe you. Maybe not. But at least they'll have heard it from me. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. All right, but I'm coming with you. You don't have to I'm coming, he said. And that's final. They rode into town together the next afternoon. Word had already spread about the wanted poster. People stared as they passed. Some turned away. Others whispered behind their hands. Naomi's stomach churned, but she kept her head high. They stopped at the church, the only public space large enough to hold a crowd. Silas walked inside and spoke to the minister, a kind-faced man named Reverend Matthews. We need to borrow your building, Silas said. For what? For the truth. Matthews looked uncertain, but he nodded. All right, I'll spread the word. By evening, the church was packed. Townspeople filled the pews, murmuring amongst themselves. Naomi stood at the front, hands shaking, trying to find her voice. Silas stood beside her. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." She stepped forward. The room went quiet. "My name is Naomi Mercer," she said, "and I'm here to tell you what Fletcher Cade doesn't want you to know." She told them everything. About David, about the debts, about the abuse, the threats, the years spent running, about the son she'd lost and the life she'd tried to rebuild. She told them about Cade's crimes, the intimidation, the violence, the way he controlled people through fear and money. By the time she finished, the room was silent. Then someone stood. An older woman Naomi recognized from the general store. "I believe her," the woman said. Another person stood. Then another. Not everyone, but enough. Cade had overplayed his hand. He'd made Naomi into a villain, but he'd forgotten that small towns don't like being told what to think. As they walked out of the church, Naomi felt something shift. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was hope, and right now, that was enough. But the next morning, when Naomi went to feed the chickens, she found something that made her blood run cold. A boy, maybe 12 years old, thin, dirty, tied to the fence post with rope. He looked up at her with hollow, familiar eyes. And Naomi's world stopped, because she knew those eyes. She'd seen them in a mirror, in photographs, in dreams. "Elias," she whispered. The boy nodded. "Mama?" Naomi's knees buckled. She fell to the ground in front of him, hands shaking as she reached out to touch his face. "You're alive," she breathed. "You're alive." "He told me you were dead," Elias said, his voice breaking. "He told me you didn't want me." No, baby, I've been looking for you. I never stopped looking." She untied the ropes with trembling hands and pulled him into her arms. He was so thin, so fragile, but he was alive. Her son was alive. Silas appeared beside her. "Naomi, who—" "My son," she said, her voice choked with tears. "This is my son." Silas's expression shifted from confusion to shock to something fierce and protective. "Come on," he said. "Let's get him inside." They brought Elias into the house. Naomi couldn't stop touching him, his hair, his face, his hands, like she needed to make sure he was real. "How did you get here?" she asked. "I ran away," Elias said. "From Cade. He's had me since Papa died. He said I was payment for the debt, made me work in his house. But I heard him talking about you. About how he was going to use you to get more money, so I ran." "And he just let you go?" Elias shook his head. "He doesn't know yet, but he will. And when he finds out, he's not getting you back," Naomi said fiercely. "I don't care what it takes. He's not touching you again." Elias looked at her, tears streaming down his face. "I thought you were dead." "I'm here," Naomi said. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." She held him while he cried. Held him until the sobs subsided and he fell asleep in her arms, exhausted and broken but alive. Silas stood in the doorway, watching. "Cade's gonna come for him," he said quietly. "I know. This just became a war." "I know." Naomi looked up at him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Silas's jaw was set. "We end this. Now." Naomi nodded, because her son was alive, and she'd burn the world down before she let anyone take him from her again. Elias woke that night screaming. Naomi was beside him in seconds, pulling him close, whispering that he was safe, that she had him, that no one was going to hurt him. But the boy thrashed in her arms, fighting ghosts she couldn't see. "He's coming," Elias gasped. "He's coming for me." "No one's coming. You don't understand. He always finds me. Every time I tried to run before, he found me. This time is different." "How?" Elias's eyes were wild. "How is it different? Because you're not alone anymore." Silas appeared in the doorway, rifle in hand. Behind him, Charlotte and Lily peered into the room, wide-eyed and scared. "What happened?" Charlotte asked. "Nightmare," Naomi said. "Go back to bed." But Lily pushed past her father and climbed onto the bed beside Elias. She took his hand. "I get nightmares too," she said. "But Naomi stays with me until they go away. She'll stay with you too." Elias looked at the little girl, then at Naomi. "You're really my mother?" Yes. I don't remember you. The words hit Naomi like a punch. You were just a baby when... She stopped. When I lost you. He told me you gave me away, that you didn't want me. That's a lie. I never stopped looking for you. Elias's face crumpled. I wanted to believe that, but it's been so long. I know, baby. Naomi pulled him close again. But I'm here now, and I'm not letting go. Lily squeezed his hand. You can stay with us. We have room. Charlotte stood in the doorway, arms crossed, but her expression had softened. Yeah, you can stay. Silas nodded. As long as you need. Elias looked around at all of them, these strangers who were offering him safety, family, home, and something in his face broke open. He buried his head against Naomi's shoulder and sobbed. She held him through it, held him until he had nothing left. And when he finally fell back asleep, she kept holding him, terrified that if she let go, he'd disappear again. Silas sat down on the edge of the bed. You should sleep too. I can't. You need to. What if he wakes up and I'm not here? Then I'll be here, Silas said. I'll watch him. I promise. Naomi looked at him, at this man who'd taken her in when she had nothing, who'd stood by her when anyone else would have turned her away, who was now offering to watch over her son like he was his own. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Because you'd do the same for my girls. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she wasn't worth this kind of faith, but she was too tired, too worn down, so she just nodded. Thank you, she whispered. Get some rest, Silas said. We're going to need it. Naomi lay down beside Elias, one hand on his back, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. Within minutes, exhaustion pulled her under. She dreamed of fire. The next morning, Garrett found fresh hoofprints near the eastern fence line. 5 riders, maybe 6, circling the property sometime after midnight. They're watching us, he said. Let them watch, Silas said. You don't get it. They're not just watching. They're planning something. Then we plan better, Garrett spat. With what? We've got 3 men, 2 of them ready to bolt the second things get ugly. Cade's got a private army. Then we even the odds. How? Silas looked toward the house, where Naomi was feeding Elias breakfast. We make this public. Cade's been operating in the shadows for years. Time to drag him into the light. And how do we do that? We take it to the law. Garrett laughed bitterly. The sheriff's in Cade's pocket. Has been for years. Then we go over his head. Circuit judge is due in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Garrett shook his head. Cade's not going to wait 3 weeks. Then we hold him off until then. You're insane. Probably, Silas said. But it's all we've got. Inside, Naomi was watching Elias eat like she couldn't quite believe he was real. The boy was shoveling eggs into his mouth with the desperation of someone who'd gone hungry too many times. Slow down, Naomi said gently. It's not going anywhere. Elias paused, swallowed. Sorry, I'm not used to... I know. She touched his hand. Take your time. Charlotte sat across from them, studying Elias with the same sharp assessment she'd once turned on Naomi. How old are you? She asked. 12, I think. You think? Cade never celebrated my birthday, so I don't know exactly. Charlotte's jaw tightened. What did he make you do? Charlotte, Naomi warned. I want to know. Elias set down his fork. Kitchen work, mostly. Scrubbing floors, cleaning fireplaces. Sometimes he'd make me stand in the corner during his meetings. Said I was a reminder of what happened to people who crossed him. That's sick, Charlotte said. Yeah. Elias looked down. It was. Lily reached across the table and patted his arm. You don't have to do that anymore. You're safe here. Am I? Elias looked at Naomi. He's going to come for me. You know that, right? Let him come, Naomi said. He'll hurt you. He'll hurt all of you. We'll handle it. You don't understand what he's capable of. Yes, I do. Naomi's voice was hard. Better than anyone. But I'm not running anymore. And neither are you. Elias stared at her. Then slowly, he nodded. That afternoon, Vivienne returned. She rode up to the gate alone this time, dressed in deep burgundy, her hair pinned beneath a hat that looked too expensive for the desert. Silas met her with his rifle. You've got 10 seconds to state your business and leave. Such hostility, Vivian said, though her smile was cold. I come bearing a message from Fletcher. I'm not interested. You should be. He knows the boy is here. Silas's blood ran cold. What boy? Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you. Vivian's eyes glittered. Fletcher wants him back, and he's willing to negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. Oh, I think there is. You see, that boy is legally Fletcher's property. The debt his father owed. A child can't be property. A child whose mother abandoned him, who Fletcher graciously took in and raised. Vivian tilted her head. The law sees it differently. The law can go to hell. Perhaps. But Fletcher can make your life very difficult. Or, she paused. He can make it very easy. Return the boy, and he'll leave you alone. Keep him, and, well, you saw what happened to your hayfield. That was just a warning. Tell Cade if he sets foot on my property again, I'll shoot him. Vivian laughed. You think you're the first person to threaten Fletcher Cade? You think you're special? She leaned forward in her saddle. You're nothing. A dirt farmer with delusions of heroism, and when Fletcher is done with you, there won't be enough left of this ranch to bury. Get off my land. 1 week, Vivian said. That's how long you have to return the boy. After that, she smiled. After that, all bets are off. She turned her horse and rode away. Silas stood at the gate, shaking with rage. When he turned back toward the house, he found Naomi standing on the porch. She'd heard everything. She's right, you know, Naomi said quietly. About the law. Cade probably does have paperwork saying Elias belongs to him. Paperwork can be fought. Not in 3 weeks. Not before he burns this place to the ground. Then we fight back. How? Naomi's voice cracked. He's got money, power, men. We've got, what? A few ranch hands and hope? We've got the truth. The truth doesn't matter if we're dead. Silas climbed the porch steps. So what are you saying? We give up? Hand Elias back? No, I'm saying... She stopped, struggling for words. I don't know what I'm saying. I just got my son back. I can't lose him again. You won't. You can't promise that. No, Silas admitted, but I can promise I'll die trying to keep him safe. Naomi looked at him, really looked at him. Why? Why are you doing this? Because it's right. That's not good enough. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because when you walked through that gate, you brought life back into this house. Real life. Not just survival, and I'm not ready to let that go. Not for Cade, not for anyone. Naomi's eyes burned. You're a fool. So you keep telling me. She almost smiled. Almost. But then Elias appeared in the doorway, and the weight of everything crashed back down. I heard what she said, Elias said, about me being property. You're not, Naomi said firmly. But if the law says, the law is wrong. She knelt in front of him. You're my son, and no piece of paper is going to change that. Elias's lip trembled. What if they take me anyway? They won't. But what if they do? Naomi pulled him into her arms. Then I'll come get you. I'll tear down every building between here and wherever they take you. I'll break every law, fight every man. I don't care. You're mine, and I'm not losing you again. Elias held on to her like she was the only solid thing in the world. Okay. Okay. That night, the ranch felt like a fortress under siege. The hired hands patrolled the fence lines, rifles loaded. Garrett slept in the barn, one eye open. Silas checked every lock, every window, every possible entry point. Naomi sat in Elias's room, watching him sleep. She'd pulled a chair beside his bed and hadn't moved in hours. Charlotte found her there past midnight. You should sleep, Charlotte said. Can't. You're going to make yourself sick. I don't care. Charlotte sat on the floor beside the chair. He seems like a good kid. He is. Cade really kept him all these years. Yeah. That's... Charlotte shook her head. I can't even imagine. Neither can I. And I don't want to. Naomi looked at her. I'm sorry for bringing all this down on you. You already apologized. I know, but I mean it. You and Lily, you didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you. No, but I'm the reason it's happening. Charlotte was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My mom used to say that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays. She looked at Naomi. You showed up. You stayed. That makes you family, and family protects each other. Naomi's throat tightened. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just noticed. Despite everything, Naomi smiled. Yeah, I guess I did. The next 2 days were tense but quiet. No fires, no riders, just the oppressive weight of waiting. Then, on the third night, the attack came. Naomi woke to the sound of gunfire. She bolted upright, heart hammering, and ran to Elias's room. The boy was already awake, eyes wide with terror. Stay here, she said. Don't move. She grabbed the shotgun Silas had left by the door and ran downstairs. Through the window she could see muzzle flashes in the dark. Men on horseback circling the property, firing at the house. Silas was already returning fire from the front window. Garrett was at the back. How many? Naomi shouted. At least 10, Silas said. Maybe more. A bullet shattered the window beside her. Naomi ducked, glass raining down on her head. They're trying to flush us out, Garrett yelled. Let them try, Silas said. Another volley of shots. One of the hired hands went down, clutching his shoulder. The other two returned fire, but Naomi could see the fear on their faces. Then she smelled it. Smoke. The barn, Garrett said. They lit the barn. Silas swore. If it spreads to the house, I'll go, Naomi said. The hell you will. We don't have a choice. If the barn burns, we lose everything. Silas looked at her, his face tight with fear. You'll get yourself killed. Maybe. But if I don't go, we all die anyway. She didn't wait for him to argue. She ran out the back door, staying low, the shotgun heavy in her hands. The barn was already half engulfed, flames roaring into the night sky. Naomi could hear the horses screaming inside. She kicked open the door and ran in. The heat was instant, suffocating. Smoke choked her lungs. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. She found the first horse and cut its rope. It bolted past her, eyes rolling white with terror. Then the second, the third. She was reaching for the fourth when she heard a voice behind her. Hello, Naomi? She spun. Fletcher Cade stood in the doorway, silhouetted by flames, a gun in his hand. You've caused me quite a bit of trouble, he said. Naomi raised the shotgun. Stay back. Or what? You'll shoot me? He smiled. I don't think you will. Try me. You're not a killer, Naomi. You're a mother, a caretaker. You fix things. You don't break them. You don't know me. I know you better than you think. He stepped closer. I know you're scared. I know you're desperate. And I know you'll do anything to keep that boy safe. Then you know I'll pull this trigger. Cade tilted his head. Will you? Because the moment you do, my men will storm that house. They'll kill everyone inside, including your son. Naomi's hands shook. You're lying. Am I? He gestured toward the house. They're waiting for my signal. One gunshot, and it's over. What do you want? The boy. And you. Come with me willingly, and I'll leave the ranch alone. I don't believe you. Then don't. But ask yourself, is it worth the risk? Naomi's mind raced. Behind her, the barn was collapsing. The heat was unbearable. She could barely breathe. Why do you want him so badly? She asked. Because he's mine. His father owed me a debt, and I collected. Simple as that. He's a child, not a debt. He's whatever I say he is. Naomi's finger tightened on the trigger. I'm not giving him to you. Then you're sentencing everyone in that house to death. Maybe. But at least they'll die free. She fired. The shot went wide. Intentionally. It tore through the wall beside Cade's head, close enough to make him flinch. Next one goes through your skull, Naomi said. Cade's expression hardened. You just made a very big mistake. He raised his gun. Naomi dove sideways as he fired. The bullet grazed her arm, burning like fire. She hit the ground hard, rolled, came up firing again. This time, she didn't miss. The shotgun blast caught Cade in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, blood spreading across his shirt. Naomi ran. She burst out of the burning barn and sprinted toward the house. Behind her, she could hear Cade screaming orders, his voice raw with pain and rage. Silas met her at the door, pulling her inside. Are you hurt? I shot him, Naomi gasped. I shot Cade. Good. He said his men would attack if they already are. Outside, the gunfire intensified. Cade's men were closing in, emboldened by their leader's rage. Naomi reloaded the shotgun with shaking hands. Where are the kids? Cellar. They're safe. For now. For now, Silas agreed. They fought through the night, fought until Naomi's ears rang and her hands were numb and her vision blurred from smoke and exhaustion. But they held, and when dawn broke, Cade's men retreated. Naomi stood in the ruins of the yard, covered in soot and blood, and watched them go. The barn was gone. 2 of the hired hands were wounded. The house was riddled with bullet holes, but they were alive. Silas came to stand beside her. We can't do this again. I know. We end this, now. Naomi nodded. How? We take it public, all of it. Cade's crimes, his threats, everything. We go to the circuit judge when he arrives. We make sure the whole county hears what he's done. He'll kill us before then. Maybe. But if we die, at least the truth dies with witnesses. Naomi looked at the house, at the girls emerging from the cellar with Elias between them, at the ranch hands tending their wounds, at the wreckage of everything they'd tried to build. And she made a choice. All right, she said, we go public. You sure? No, but I'm done hiding, Silas nodded. Then let's finish this. The circuit judge arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the night of fire and bullets. His name was Amos Harwell, a gray-haired man with wire spectacles and a reputation for being unmoved by money or threats. He set up court in the town hall, a cramped building that smelled like old wood and tobacco. Word spread fast. By noon, the place was packed. Naomi sat in the front row, Elias beside her, Silas on her other side. Charlotte and Lily were behind them, flanked by Garrett and the 2 remaining ranch hands. The townspeople filled every available seat, some standing against the walls, others peering through the windows from outside. Fletcher Cade sat across the aisle, his shoulder bandaged beneath an expensive suit. Vivian was beside him, composed and cold. Behind them sat a lawyer, a thin man with oiled hair and a briefcase that probably cost more than most people in the room made in a year. Judge Harwell banged his gavel. This court is now in session. I understand we have a dispute regarding custody of a minor child and allegations of criminal conduct. Mr. Cade, you're the plaintiff. State your case. Cade's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client is here to reclaim what is rightfully his. The boy, Elias Mercer, was entrusted to Mr. Cade's care following the death of his father, David Mercer, who owed my client a substantial debt. For the past 6 years, Mr. Cade has provided food, shelter, and education for the child. Recently, the boy was unlawfully taken by his biological mother, who abandoned him as an infant and has no legal claim to custody. Abandoned? Naomi's voice rang out before she could stop herself. Harwell looked at her over his spectacles. You'll have your turn, ma'am. Sit down. Naomi sat, fists clenched. The lawyer continued. Furthermore, my client has been the victim of assault and arson at the hands of Mrs. Mercer and her associates. He asks this court to return the child and pursue criminal charges against those responsible. Do you have documentation proving custody? Harwell asked. The lawyer produced a folder. Signed agreements, witness statements, and financial records showing Mr. Cade's care of the child. Harwell took the papers, scanned them. These appear to be in order. Naomi's stomach dropped. However, Harwell continued, I'll hear the other side before making any determinations. Mrs. Mercer, you're representing yourself? Naomi stood. Yes, Your Honor. Then speak. She took a breath. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out steady. Everything that man just said is a lie. I didn't abandon my son. He was stolen from me. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. 6 years ago, my husband died. He'd been working for Fletcher Cade, doing things I didn't know about until it was too late. After David's death, Cade came to me and said my husband owed him money. When I couldn't pay, he took my son as collateral. I tried to get him back, tried to go to the law. But Cade owns the sheriff in my old county, owns half the businesses, owns people. She looked directly at Cade. So I ran, and I've been running ever since, until 3 months ago, when I found a place that didn't turn me away. A place that gave me a chance to stop. And this place would be? Harwell asked. Horseshoe Hollow Ranch. Silas Boone's property. Harwell looked at Silas. Mr. Boone? You're involved in this matter? Silas stood. I am, Your Honor. Mrs. Mercer came to my ranch asking for work. I gave it to her. And when Cade started threatening her, I stood by her. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. That's a dangerous position to take against a man like Fletcher Cade. I know, but I took it anyway. Harwell studied him for a moment, then nodded. Sit down, Mr. Boone. Mrs. Mercer, continue. Naomi swallowed. 2 weeks ago, my son escaped from Cade's house and found his way to me. He told me about the years he spent there, the work he was forced to do, the way Cade used him as a warning to others. That's not care. That's slavery. Cade's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. These are baseless accusations. I'll determine what's baseless, Harwell said. Sit down. The lawyer sat, jaw tight. Mrs. Mercer, Harwell said, do you have proof of these allegations? I have my son. He can testify. He's 12 years old. His testimony alone won't be enough. Then I have witnesses, people Cade has threatened, intimidated, hurt. They're here. They're willing to speak. Are they? Harwell looked around the courtroom. Anyone here willing to testify against Fletcher Cade? Silence. Naomi's heart sank. She looked back at the crowd. People she'd seen in town, people who'd listened to her at the church, people who'd seemed to believe her, but no one moved. Cade smiled. Then a woman stood, the older woman from the general store. Her voice was shaky but clear. I'll testify. Another person stood, then another. Within moments, 6 people were on their feet. Cade's smile vanished. Harwell nodded. All right, we'll hear from witnesses, but first, he looked at Elias. Son, come up here. Elias's face went white. Naomi squeezed his hand. It's okay, she whispered. Just tell the truth. Elias stood and walked to the front. He looked so small standing before the judge's bench. State your name, Harwell said. Elias Mercer. How old are you? 12. Do you know why you're here? Yes, sir. Because Mr. Cade says I belong to him, and my mother says I don't. And what do you say? Elias looked at Cade, then at Naomi. I say I want to stay with my mother. Why? Because she's my mother, and because... His voice cracked. Because Mr. Cade hurt me. He made me work every day. He locked me in the cellar when I didn't do things right. He said my mother didn't want me, that she was dead, that I was nothing without him. That's a lie, Cade said, standing. The boy is confused. I treated him well. Mr. Cade, sit down, Harwell said sharply. You'll have your turn. Cade sat, but his eyes were burning. Harwell looked at Elias. Did you run away from Mr. Cade? Yes, sir. Why? Because I heard him talking about my mother, about how he was going to use her to get money, and I knew he'd lied to me. So I ran. How did you find your mother? I remembered the name of the ranch. I heard Mr. Cade say it once, so I walked until I found it. That must have been a long walk. It was. But I didn't care. I just wanted to find her. Harwell was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Thank you, son. You can sit down. Elias returned to Naomi's side. She pulled him close, her heart breaking and swelling all at once. Over the next 2 hours, witnesses came forward. The woman from the general store testified that Cade had threatened her husband over a land dispute. A rancher testified that Cade had burned his barn when he refused to sell. A shopkeeper testified that Cade had forced him into a contract that nearly bankrupted him. One by one, they spoke. And with each testimony, Cade's veneer of respectability cracked a little more. Finally, Harwell called Naomi back to the stand. Mrs. Mercer, you said Mr. Cade took your son as collateral for your husband's debt. Do you have proof of this debt? No, David handled all the finances. I didn't know about the debt until after he died. Then how do you know it existed? Because Cade told me. He came to my house the day after David's funeral and said I owed him. When I said I couldn't pay, he took Elias. And you didn't go to the authorities? I tried. The sheriff said it was a civil matter, told me to take it up with a lawyer. But I didn't have money for a lawyer. I barely had money for food. So you ran? Yes. Why didn't you keep fighting? Naomi's throat tightened. Because I was scared. Because I just lost my husband and my son, and I didn't think I had anything left to fight with. So I ran. And I've been running ever since. She looked at Harwell. But I'm not running anymore. Because my son needs me, and I need him. And no amount of money or paperwork or threats is going to change that. Harwell nodded slowly. Mr. Cade, you want to respond? Cade stood. His face was composed, but there was a tightness around his eyes. Your Honor, I'm a businessman. I've made enemies. That's unavoidable. But these accusations are slanderous. I took in a child who had no one. I raised him, cared for him, and now his mother, a woman who abandoned him, wants to take him back. It's shameful. You didn't answer my question, Harwell said. Did you or did you not take the boy as collateral for a debt? I took responsibility for him after his father died, yes. The man owed me money. I considered it settled. By taking his child? By ensuring the child was cared for. In your house, doing your work. He had chores like any child. Chores. Harwell's tone was flat. Locked in cellars, told his mother was dead. The boy is misremembering. 6 witnesses just testified to your pattern of intimidation and violence. Are they all misremembering too? Cade's jaw tightened. I've done nothing illegal. That remains to be seen. Harwell removed his spectacles, cleaned them. Here's what I see. I see a powerful man who's used fear to control people. I see a woman who made mistakes but is trying to correct them. And I see a boy caught in the middle. He put his spectacles back on. The law says children aren't property. They're not collateral. They're people. And this particular person has made it clear where he wants to be. Cade stood. Your Honor, I have legal documentation. Your documentation is worth nothing if it was obtained through coercion, which, based on the testimony I've heard, it was. Harwell banged his gavel. Custody of Elias Mercer is hereby granted to his mother, Naomi Mercer. Mr. Cade, you are to have no contact with the child or his family. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the Territorial Marshal for investigation into the other allegations brought forward today. The courtroom erupted, people cheering, shouting, some crying. Naomi couldn't hear any of it. She just pulled Elias into her arms and held him while he sobbed. Cade stood frozen, his face a mask of rage. Then he turned and walked out, Vivian and his lawyer trailing behind him. Silas put his hand on Naomi's shoulder. You did it. We did it, she said. Charlotte and Lily pushed through the crowd, and suddenly they were all together. Naomi, Silas, Elias, the girls, holding onto each other like they were the only solid things in the world. Outside, people swarmed them, shaking hands, offering congratulations, apologizing for not speaking up sooner. Naomi moved through it in a daze, still clutching Elias's hand like if she let go, he'd disappear. They rode back to the ranch in the wagon, quiet and exhausted. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and purple. Lily fell asleep against Naomi's side. Charlotte sat across from them, a small smile on her face. Elias leaned against Naomi's other shoulder, his breathing finally even. Silas drove, his hand steady on the reins. What happens now? Naomi asked quietly. Now we rebuild, Silas said. The barn, the fences, everything Cade destroyed. And if he comes back, he won't, not after today. Harwell's involving the marshal. Cade's got bigger problems than us now. Naomi wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe it was finally over, but part of her was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. As if reading her mind, Silas said, It's going to take time. To feel safe. To stop looking over your shoulder. I know. But you will. Eventually. How do you know? Because I did. He glanced at her. After Clara died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. Thought the rest of my life would just be going through the motions. But then you showed up, and everything changed. Naomi's throat tightened. Silas? I'm not asking for anything, he said. I just wanted you to know. They rode the rest of the way in silence. The next few weeks were hard. They rebuilt the barn with help from neighbors who'd testified at the trial. The marshal came out, took statements, and left with a list of charges against Cade that would keep him tied up in legal battles for years. Vivian disappeared. Rumor was she'd left town entirely, gone east where no one knew her name. Elias struggled. He had nightmares, flinched at loud noises, went quiet sometimes for hours. But Naomi stayed with him, held him when he cried, sat with him in the silence, and slowly, he started to come back. Charlotte took him under her wing, teaching him how to ride, how to rope, how to survive on a ranch. She was patient in a way Naomi had never seen before, like having someone to protect had unlocked something in her. Lily adored him, followed him everywhere, chattering endlessly, making him laugh when he didn't think he could. And Silas was steady, solid. He didn't push, didn't demand, didn't expect anything. He just was there. One evening, about 2 months after the trial, Naomi found him sitting on the fence behind the barn, watching the sunset. She climbed up beside him. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how different things are now. How different I feel. Good different or bad different?" "Good." He looked at her. "Definitely good." Naomi smiled. "Yeah, me too." They sat together in comfortable silence. The sky turned from gold to rose to deep purple. Stars began to appear, faint at first, then brighter. "I was thinking," Silas said after a while, "that maybe, if you wanted, you could stop thinking of yourself as temporary." Naomi's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've been here almost 6 months. The girls love you. Elias is settled. And He paused. "I don't want you to leave. Ever." "Silas, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet, anyway. I'm just asking you to stay. To make this your home, really your home." Naomi looked out at the ranch, at the house with its patched roof and repaired walls, at the new barn standing where the old one had burned, at the fence line stretching toward the horizon. She thought about the woman who'd arrived here 6 months ago, broken, desperate, running from everything. And she thought about who she was now, still broken in places, still scared sometimes, but not running anymore. "Okay," she said. Silas turned to her. "Yeah?" "Yeah, I'll stay." He smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look 10 years younger. "Good. But I want to do something first." "What?" "I want to change my name, legally. I don't want to be Naomi Mercer anymore. That name belongs to someone I used to be." "What do you want to be?" She thought about it. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." "Take your time," Silas said. "You're not going anywhere." That night, Naomi lay in bed listening to the house settle around her. Elias was asleep in the next room, his breathing deep and even. Charlotte and Lily were down the hall. Silas was in his room at the other end of the house. For the first time in years, Naomi felt safe. Not perfect, not healed, but safe. And that was enough. Winter came. Then spring. The ranch thrived. Cattle multiplied, crops grew. The hired hands stayed on, and Garrett stopped scowling every time Naomi walked past. Elias started smiling more, started talking about the future like he believed he'd have one. He and Charlotte became inseparable, arguing and laughing and working side by side like siblings who'd known each other their whole lives. Lily declared that Naomi was her second mother and refused to hear otherwise. And Silas asked Naomi to marry him on a warm evening in June while they were sitting on the porch watching fireflies. "You said you weren't going to ask," Naomi said, laughing through tears. "I changed my mind," Silas said. "So what do you say?" "Yes. Obviously, yes." They married in the fall, in the same church where Naomi had told her story. The whole town came. Even people who'd been skeptical at first showed up with gifts and well wishes. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony. Charlotte and Lily stood beside Naomi, and Elias stood beside Silas. And when the Reverend asked if anyone objected, Garrett muttered, "About damn time," loud enough for everyone to hear. People laughed. Naomi laughed, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The reception was held at the ranch. Tables set up in the yard, lanterns strung between the trees, music and dancing and food that seemed to go on forever. Naomi danced with Silas, with Elias, with Charlotte and Lily, with Garrett, who grumbled the whole time but didn't step on her feet once. As the night wore on and people started heading home, Naomi stood at the gate, the same gate she'd stood at 6 months earlier. and looked out at the road stretching into the darkness. She'd walked that road with nothing, no hope, no plan, no reason to believe things would ever get better. But they had. Not because she'd been rescued, not because someone had fixed her, but because she'd chosen to stop running, chosen to take a chance, chosen to let people in even when it scared her. And that had made all the difference. Silas came to stand beside her. "What are you thinking about?" "How far I've come," Naomi said. "How much has changed." "Any regrets?" "Not a single one." He put his arm around her and she leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of him against her side. Behind them, the house glowed with lamplight. Inside, Elias was teaching Lily how to play cards while Charlotte watched with mock disapproval. Garrett was probably asleep in the barn, snoring loud enough to wake the horses. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs. And it was home. Naomi closed the gate, took Silas's hand, and walked back toward the house. Behind her, the road stretched empty and dark. But she didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because she wasn't the woman who'd arrived at that gate anymore. She wasn't running, wasn't hiding, wasn't waiting for the world to break her again. She was Naomi Boone now. Wife, mother, fighter, survivor. And she was finally free. The end.